I personally am deeply concerned about what seems to be the return of some to the 6th of October. Violent demonstrations from certain parts on the extreme left, absolutely convinced that the root of all evil was then and still is today the Prime Minister, the government, and the decision makers today. And people on the other side who feel that the root of so much evil is the type of demonstrations there were before against the judicial reform, the zero-sum game of bringing the army and the economy into the center of Israeli politics. And each one feels the other side is being undemocratic. And once again, the stakes are high again, and the sense of the zero-sum game, that each one is convinced that the afflictions and the challenges of the country and all that is bad about the country rests with the other side. Oy vavoy, if we go back to this type of thinking and this type of behavior. Because you see, it's exactly this and the psychology of this that comes to be shown in a powerful statement of the sages in the Mishnah in Masechet Negaim, which is directly related to the parashot that we read about, Tazria this week, Metzora, all those which deal with the affliction of tzara'at, a type of leprosy, as we know, which affects all types of the house and the body, etc. And I want to share this with you because it's such a deep insight. And the sages say as follows: a law which has a deep psychological insight about how we see each other's and how we cannot see ourselves and our shortcomings for what they are. Our sages say, and it's a Mishnah in Masechet Negaim in chapter 2, it says, Kol ha-negaim adam ro'eh. A person is able to see all afflictions, chutz minigei atzmo, except for their own. The Kohen is able to judge when people come and have to decide whether they have tzara'at or not. The Kohen is able to see with clarity the afflictions of all others and rule who should go into quarantine or not, except for his own. Because you know it is so difficult to see our own afflictions. And our sages see this such a powerful psychological statement. We are so good and clear objectively at times, seeing the shortcomings of others, the afflictions of others, but we can't see them in ourselves. It's so difficult. And I remember a book that I read many years ago. It came out in the 1980s by Professor Daniel Goleman, the famous author of Emotional Intelligence. But he authored another book previously, and that was called Vital Lies and Simple Truths, the psychology of self-deception. The vital lies we tell ourselves in order to feel okay about ourselves, to cope, and project onto others so many deceptive truths, which are in fact not the right way of seeing things. It is so easy to project onto others all the woes of society because we simply cannot see them within ourselves. And so often when we project so clearly and vocally about the shortcomings of others, indeed we are really talking about the shortcomings of ourselves. As our sages famously say, Kol ha-posel, a person who delegitimizes and condemns and criticizes others is indeed condemning themselves. You see, we see the world not the way it is. We see it the world the way we are. And if all we can see is the afflictions of others, perhaps what we're really seeing is a mirror of our own afflictions. And I believe with every fiber in my being that especially now, facing the challenge that Israel faces, it is incumbent upon all of us to raise our game and not only to do the knee-jerk reaction of being convinced that everybody else, except for ourselves, is really the root of all the problems, but perhaps we share responsibility. And this is the great personal spiritual growth that needs to take place of the negaim. It's the lashon hara. It's the criticizing others, not judging others favorably, seeing the negatives of others that our sages say is the root of all of the evils, of the afflictions of tzara'at. And may we all, especially now when our country and people have been so afflicted and continue in the aftermath of the 7th of October, more than 6 months later now, with challenges that we still face, to dig deep, to judge others favorably, and perhaps to see many of the afflictions that we attribute to others are perhaps a reflection of what inside us needs to be confronted and changed. Shabbat Shalom.